afraid I haven't had an opportunity of looking at the pleading. What are the issues?
Well, your lordship knows, of course, that we're
When a
involved
young
with
British
libel.
officer, Captain Egerton, was jailed in India for gun running,
It is a
the
simple
scandal
matter
made
which
world
the second
headlines.
defendant claims
Returned to
to
England, he
defect
was
the
court-martialed,
plaintiff Colonel
and despite his
Morland lied
defence
during
that he was under
court-martial.
orders from MI5,
And the
again
issues of
found
the
guilty
pleadings are
and
as
dismissed the
follows.
service,
The
his life in
publication of the
ruins.
article is admitted.
Only then did
Further,
John
the article
Egerton
is
talk to the
admitted
press.
libelous.
Amongst his claims, he said that his CO, Colonel Morland, had known and lied in evidence about it. Since retired, Morland now sues Egerton and the newspaper which published his story for libel.
Yes, my lord, the libel is admitted both by Mr. Egerton and the Sunday Star. However, my evidence will show that these statements were in fact true and therefore justified. I accept that the burden of proof rests upon my clients, and accordingly my learned friend and I have agreed that I should start.
Yes, well, that seems sensible. It is agreed, is it, Miss
Yes,
Gibson?
my lord.
Very well, then. Open your case, Mr. Logan.
Lord. Now, members of the jury, this case is, as you know, a libel case. It arises out of an article written by the first defendant, Mr. Egerton, and published by the second defendant's Star newspapers. In this case, I represent the defendants, and my colleague, Miss Gibson, represents the plaintiff, Colonel Morland. Now, the article complained of is admitted by my clients to be defamatory. It includes such statements as, "Of course, Colonel Morland knew all about it and lied at my court-martial." However, we shall show that these statements were in fact true, and therefore they were quite justified.
What is your religion?
C of E, Church of England.
Take the Bible in your right hand and read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
What is your full name?
John Nigel Egerton.
And your address?
I have no permanent address now. I'm presently staying with friends at 133 Parsonage Road, Fulchester.
What is your occupation, Mr. Egerton?
It's gone the same way as my home. I've no occupation. I'm drawing national insurance supplementary benefits.
Well, what was your occupation?
I was a captain in the British Army until October last year.
When you were...
Cashiered, yes. I was court-martialed and sentenced to be dismissed the service. I wasn't sent to jail only because I'd already served 18 months in prison in India.
On what charges?
The charge was gun running.
And you were found guilty?
Yes.
Now, while you were a regular officer, were you stationed in Brussels?
I was attached to NATO forces in Brussels, yes.
NATO?
North Atlantic Treaty Organization, yes, my lord.
And your superior officer at this time was?
Colonel Morland.
Yes. Now, while you were in Brussels, did any of your duties concern military intelligence, spying?
No, sir.
No?
Not in any official or formal way. I acted as an agent upon one occasion. Doing a favor was how they put it, for MI5.
Yes. Now, will you tell the jury what you know of a man called Arthur Judson?
I was at school with him first. He wasn't a friend or anything. We were in the same form at school.
Did you keep up an acquaintance?
I ran across him probably no more than half a dozen times in 10 or 15 years.
Did you meet Judson again in Brussels?
Yes. Socially, a couple of times, at parties and things. And then he approached me.
Please tell us about that approach.
Well, in the meanwhile, he'd become a bit of a wild man, a dealer, an occasional mercenary, a sort of fringe character. Been in Rhodesia, knocked about. I don't know, I never did find out what he was doing in Belgium, but he wasn't short of cash.
He approached you?
Well, he said that someone had put him in touch with a group of highly unpleasant men. Terrorists, was his guess, who had all the money in the world and who wanted to buy some particularly nasty arms, plastics, high explosives, anti-personnel stuff, fragmentation, and so on.
But why should Judson approach you?
Not to supply them, certainly. He said his first instinct was to run like hell. And then he thought, no, maybe this stuff was for use against women and children, you know, terrorism, and someone ought to know about it. He had no contacts officially, and what did I think?
What did you think?
I thought I should report it, which I did to my superior officer, Colonel Morland, formally and in writing.
What action did Colonel Morland take?
He wrote a memorandum to military intelligence.
Yes, my lord, both these memoranda are agreed documents. They're not disputed by the plaintiff, and I shall be referring to them in due course.
Yes, very well.
We come now, Mr. Egerton, to the point where your version of these events differs from that of the plaintiff.
Yes.
The Colonel maintains that he heard nothing further,
Yes.
that the matter was dropped and no action was taken.
Yes.
My lord, the learned friend appears to be trying to conduct my case for me.
Yes, I'm sure that is not his intention. Is it, Mr. Logan?
No, my lord. Mr. Egerton, will you please tell us what in fact happened?
Well, 3 days after the Colonel's memo, I was visited at home by 2 security agents. That was the 19th of December, 1971.
Agents, in what manner did they identify themselves?
Well, one of them was Major Weeks, whom I'd already met. Even so, he showed me formal identification that he was a major in military intelligence. The other one called himself Spicer and was, I was given to understand, an agent in MI5.
MI5 is the government agency which deals with espionage abroad.
Yes.
And did this Spicer gentleman produce any identification of any kind?
No, sir, he didn't. He was a spy.
What identification can a spy carry?
He was vouched for by Weeks. I accepted that.
Major Weeks explained to you that this man, Spicer, was a spy.
The word spy wasn't used, my lord. He said, Mr. Spicer's our expert in this sort of espionage thing. And they did mention MI5, talking between themselves.
Can you remember that conversation?
Well, Major Weeks said something like, this has really got you MI5 boys jumping, eh? To Spicer.
What did they say was the purpose of their visit?
Oh, it was a follow-up to the Colonel's memo. They took it all very seriously indeed, whatever they pretended afterwards.
What did they tell you they wanted with you?
Well, Spicer said that it was essential they found out who the principals were, where the money was coming from, where the arms were going to, what for, and so on. Neither Judson nor I knew, of course. And Judson had said that he wouldn't talk to anyone official, in case it got out, and he got his throat cut. Spicer asked me, after a bit of humming and hawing, if I'd do it myself.
And can you remember what he said?
He asked me to involve myself, get to meet the people, play along and find out, get some proof, if possible, against the Arabs.
The principals were Arabs.
So I discovered later. The theory was that MI5 couldn't trust Judson, and anyway, he wouldn't meet them. I could say that I was old pals with him, which would be my cover, and Spicer would give me the name of a man with Omnipol, so that I could introduce myself to them as a man who could supply them with the arms they wanted.
Yes, Omnipol?
The Czech state arms firm. They'll supply anyone, and not too many questions.
And you agreed to undertake this, did you?
Stupidly, I did.
Stupidly. This was an official British government department request, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Stupidly, because in the event, they left me to carry the can.
Now, when you agreed to the MI5 request, did you bring up the question of what would happen if anything went wrong?
Yes, I said they'd have to fix it with Colonel Morland. Spicer said there'll be no problem there. I wasn't keen anyway, as you can imagine. A serving officer involved in cloak and dagger with no written orders. Anyway, Spicer and Major Weeks assured me there'd be no comeback and that, in fact, it would do my career no harm.
Did you understand these assurances to mean that if you were caught in any embarrassment as a result of working for MI5, that you would then be formally and officially exonerated?
Yes, I did. They said, no problem, we'll look after you.
And were their promises kept?
Like hell. No.
Did you then meet the Arab principals?
Yeah, I met a total of 4 men on many different occasions, both in Brussels and all over Europe. I posed as an agent, a contact man between them and Omnipol. In due course, they bought their arms.
Yes, if there were meetings, contacts, trips all over Europe, this must have taken up a great deal of your time.
Yes.
While you were supposed to be busy with your official work. Now, did Colonel Morland give you time off, leave, to cope with all of this?
As often as I needed it, yes. He cooperated in every way.
On what grounds?
Because he'd been told by MI5 what was happening and asked to cooperate.
You know that Colonel Morland denies that.
They all deny it now.
But you
It is true.
Yes, you maintain this, although it has proved impossible to trace any such MI5 official as Spicer.
Well, of course he can't be traced. It wasn't his real name, and they've closed ranks.
Did you report progress to Colonel Morland? What did you tell him you were doing?
Well, it's not an easy question to answer. There's no doubt he did know. I mean, Spicer certainly went to see him. They met. But like the rest of all this, it's just my word against an official conspiracy of silence.
Oh, my lord, conspiracy, that is an allegation which is not on the pleadings.
No, but it is implicit in the defendant's case that if he is telling the truth, there must have been some official conspiracy of silence, so to speak. Now let us hear the rest of his testimony.
Well, let's put it another way. Why is there no doubt in your mind that Colonel Morland knew what you were doing?
Because he'd have to be a fool not to know. A fool or an ostrich. And he's a shrewd and clever man.
Yes, but
these are the facts. Spicer and Weeks came to see me, promised to tell the Colonel, and went straight away to see him. Thereafter, Colonel Morland cooperated in every way, gave me any amount of time off, and in the end, he gave me a month's leave to go off when I was due no leave at all.
How many times did you apply to him for special leave?
20 or 30 times.
And did he ever raise any objection or say it couldn't go on?
No.
In your day-to-day contacts with him, however obliquely, did you report to the Colonel? What did you say between yourselves?
Well, we were circumspect. It was hush-hush. The whole damn thing seems like a nightmare now, but I might have got a bullet in my head for loose talk, I suppose. The official story was that I had personal business problems of my own. He knew I hadn't. He knew what I was doing, and I knew that he knew. Spicer had asked me not to discuss it.
Yes, but there must have been occasions when you had to refer to it somehow.
Well, the phrase was, the same business. He'd say, the same business, Egerton, and I'd just say yes. There was one occasion when I did let slip something about being a sort of spy.
Can you remember what that was?
Yes, I said, here I am James Bonding, but I don't know where all the dolly ladies have got to. But Colonel Morland ignored it. He froze me. He said, this is hardly a matter for jokes, Egerton, proving he knew what I was doing.
Now, you say that in due course you put these Arabs in touch with Omnipol and they obtained the arms they wanted.
Yes.
Didn't you consider that undesirable? Arms that you say yourself are particularly nasty in the hands of a terrorist organization. Why did you let it go so far?
Well, it was no part of my job to stop it, my lord. That was up to MI5. I couldn't have stopped it. And anyway, I still hadn't found out what the terrorists wanted the arms for.
Briefly, Mr. Egerton, would you tell us what happened at the time the terrorists took delivery of those arms?
Yes, my lord. At Spicer's request, I accompanied the arms in the hopes of learning their destination. We picked up the arms at a Yugoslav port and carried them by sea to Egypt. And there we went overland to meet up with another ship in the Red Sea and sailed out into the Arabian Sea. Off the coast of Oman, however, we were stopped and boarded by a warship of the Indian Navy. We had 3 of the Arabs on board, and they put up a fight and were all killed. The ship's crew and Judson and I were taken in custody to Bombay. Eventually, the crew was released, but Judson and I stood trial and were sent to jail.
And you served a sentence of 18 months?
Yes, and Judson's still in jail in India.
And therefore, unfortunately, not available to give evidence.
Yes, you have made application to the Indian authorities for him to be made available to give evidence,
Yes, my lord, many applications.
which have been refused.
Yes, my lord.
But, I mean, is there any testimony from him at all? I mean, evidence of commission?
Well, unfortunately, my lord, the Indian authorities have refused all requests to visit him and interview him on this question.
That is unfortunate.
Yes, it is, my lord. Mr.
It
Egerton...
seems unsatisfactory not to have any evidence of Judson's. He is quite plainly a material witness.
The transcript of the Indian trial, which includes Judson's testimony at that time, is available, my lord.
Yes, I know, but he is not here, is he? He's not here to answer specific questions or to be cross-examined. And if there was any prospect of his being made available, I would listen very favourably to an application for adjournment.
My lord, in view of the costs already incurred in these proceedings, both my clients and, I understand, the plaintiff are most anxious to continue.
My client would oppose any adjournment, my lord. Our understanding is it'll be 12 months at least before Judson is released, and then he may be reluctant to testify. But this is a grave libel on the character and reputation of a fine officer. It's not a matter which should be left unresolved, hanging over him for another year or more.
My client's attitude, my lord, is that there will always be some obstacle to Judson giving evidence, and he therefore sees no point in postponing the trial.
Very well. We shall continue.
Now, Mr. Egerton, you were telling us that in hopes of discovering the final destination of the arms, You went with them on a lengthy journey.
Yes.
And did you learn their intended destination?
No, sir. We were stopped before I could. But there's little doubt now that they were going to the rebels in Muscat and Oman.
If you had found out earlier for MI5, how were you to have communicated this information to the British authorities?
I had a cable address and a London phone number for Spicer and a radio frequency on which someone was supposed to listen 24 hours a day. But I believe no one expected that we'd go out of the Mediterranean.
Would you enlarge upon that?
Well, the British were interested because we felt that the arms were going somewhere within the Med, Cyprus maybe, or to the Palestine guerrillas. Anyway, if I couldn't make contact any other way at the 11th hour, I was supposed to get into the ship's radio room and tape down the send key on the transmitter so that our chaps could get a fix on us.
And come and put a stop to it?
Catch them red-handed with a shipload of arms, yes.
Cloak and dagger, indeed. You were very thoroughly briefed anyway, were you?
Yes, they were pros. But we didn't stay in the Med.
And no British warship came to intercept you?
No. I think they lost interest as soon as they knew it wasn't the Med, you know, outside our sphere of influence. Perhaps they tipped off the Indian government. I thought so, and threw me to the wolves.
My lord.
Yes, indeed. That is all conjecture.
No, it's my opinion.
Now, please confine yourself to what you yourself observed.
Somebody threw me to the wolves.
Be quiet. Just answer your counsel's questions.
An Indian warship intercepted you instead. And did you then make yourself known to the Indian authorities?
Oh, yes, I thought they'd come at the request of the British. Anyway, they certainly knew who I was.
Well, if they knew that, then there must have been some communication between the British and Indian governments.
Yes, of course there was.
My lord, reluctant as I am to interrupt my learned friend, this is more conjecture. It hasn't been proved. It can't be proved. It's simply this witness's guess or invention.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Logan, it just won't do, and I think you know it.
Very well, my lord. Knowing who you were then, Mr. Egerton, and presumably something of your mission, how were you treated by the Indian authorities?
Not quite as a common criminal. I'm afraid I can only answer that with another opinion.
Well, answer it factually, as best you can. What was the attitude of the Indians towards you?
Well, it's my belief they were damned angry with us for playing at spies, and for allowing dangerous arms to go so far, and with our government for leaving them to do the dirty work. And they refused to believe that I wasn't a professional agent. So they treated me as a bit of a fool, not a very nice man of whom they were going to make an example.
And you were charged and tried in India?
Found guilty and sent to jail.
As the case was widely reported over here, and an agreed transcript of the proceedings is available in court. But there is no mention anywhere, is there, of your being tried as a spy? You were charged and called simply an arms smuggler.
That was the offence, yes. And if they wanted to cock a snook, register a protest with the British government, that's how they do it. No need to talk about spying, just jail the spy.
So that you were made a scapegoat for official dereliction?
Oh, no, Mr. Logan, that just won't do. It is pure speculation and so far unsubstantiated. That is not a proper question.
Well, my lord, as you may imagine, we have made great efforts to obtain official comment on this matter, and quite without success. Throughout, the government has maintained a total, unhelpful and almost suspicious silence.
We cannot have speculation. Now, let us pass on to something else.
Very well, my lord. Now, Mr. Egerton, had you private means, any funds or income of your own, in addition to your pay as an army officer?
No, sir, none at all. I lived on my pay.
At your court-martial, when you came to England, your defence made considerable investigations into your finances, did it not?
Mine and my wife's. My ex-wife's, that is. Every penny earned and spent.
And this established, did it not, that you had spent a total of £876 for airfares and hotel and living expenses incurred during the various meetings, contacts and trips abroad that you say MI5 asked you to undertake?
£876 cash.
Cash which did not come from your own pocket?
No.
Where did you obtain this money?
From Spicer. I was helping MI5 and they paid my expenses.
So the money came from MI5?
Yes.
And did you pay cash for each air trip that you went on?
No, sir. The first trip to Dubrovnik in Yugoslavia was paid for by an army travel warrant.
So why did you go to Dubrovnik?
It was at the beginning of this business. I went to meet the Omnipol officials.
Well, then it couldn't be called army business, could it? Not a trip that you took in connection with your normal NATO or other army business.
No, sir. It was for the arms. MI5 business.
And who signed that travel warrant?
Colonel Morland.
Colonel Morland signed the travel warrant. Had he any reason to believe that you were going to Yugoslavia on army business?
No, sir, none at all. I had no army business in Yugoslavia.
And yet Colonel Morland, who claims he knew nothing of your MI5 activities, signed the travel warrant?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, I took the warrant to him for signature. He glanced at it, looked at me for a long time, and then said, "Dubrovnik?" I said something like, "Yes, you know why, sir." He paused again, finally said, "Yes," signed it and gave it back to me.
That's all that was said?
Yes. He
Now-
did sign it.
Now, when you were tried in India, who paid for your defence costs?
The British government.
The British government paid for your defence costs, even though they later claimed that you had not been working for them?
Yes.
Now, can you suggest any reason why they should pay? A British Army officer caught gun running?
Yes, I was defended by top Indian lawyers, paid for by the British authorities, on condition that I did not mention MI5 in court.
Are you saying that some sort of an arrangement was made with you? A deal that a government official said to you, "We'll defend you, and defend you very well, if you don't admit publicly that you were working for us"?
That was the substance of it, yes.
Who was this official?
My lord, is this relevant to this case?
Where are you taking us, Mr. Logan?
My lord, it is part of the plaintiff's case that my client was not working for MI5, but I'm attempting to establish that he actually was.
Very well.
Thank you, my lord. Who was the official who made this scandalous arrangement with you, Mr.
Mr.
Egerton?
Logan, let us try and avoid emotional language.
Very well, my lord. Mr. Egerton, who made this extraordinary offer to you?
He gave his name as Thompson, Mr. Thompson of the Ministry of Defence, and he said he was a friend of Spicer's. He was MI5.
And what did he say were the terms of this offer?
He said he wanted me not to mention MI5 in court.
Is he another witness that cannot be traced?
I'm afraid so, my lord. The Ministry of Defence flatly denies all knowledge of an official who went to India in this connection.
Yes, and yet someone did visit Egerton in jail.
Oh, yes, my lord. There are Indian prison service records to prove it. But unfortunately, Thompson, like Spicer, has disappeared off the face of the earth.
Miss Gibson, have you any evidence to suggest the identity of this visitor?
No, my lord, our inquiries confirm those of my learned friend.
So you have no explanation for the visit of this mysterious man, other than that he was an official of British intelligence
As you
services,
say,
MI5.
my lord, it is a mystery.
I mean, is any official to be called who can answer these questions?
My lord, Major Weeks, who sent a memorandum to Colonel Morland, will testify that he did not, as claimed, ever visit Egerton.
Yes, but I mean somebody from MI5. Somebody who can testify on oath that no official visited Egerton.
No, my lord.
My lord, this is the Secret Service. All inquiries have led to the same blank wall of silence. All attempts to serve a subpoena Duce's taken have failed because we've been quite unable to establish the identity of even one MI5 official.
But has no official been put forward to answer your inquiries?
No, my lord.
Your client claims that two men visited him in jail. Now, the existence of these two men could be proved or disproved by the records of MI5. You should most certainly have your subpoena compelling them to bring forward the necessary documents. And you say that inquiring who should be subpoenaed, you met a brick wall.
Yes, my lord.
Well, this is very disturbing and very wrong. No group of men, however secret, can be above the law. Now, MI5 must have known that this case was going on. There's been a great deal of publicity about it. And I say it in the hope that it'll be reported in the press and that by tomorrow morning documents will be forthcoming or someone from the department to explain why not. I shall now adjourn.
All stand.
The case of Morland versus Egerton and Star newspapers will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. Captain Egerton was court-martialed following a jail sentence in India for gun running. He's told the Sunday Star newspaper that he was acting under orders from MI5 and that his CO at the time, Colonel Morland, knew this and lied at his court-martial. Morland now sues Egerton and the newspaper for libel.
Now, members of the jury, before we adjourned yesterday, I said that official denials made second-hand of some of the questions raised in this case was most unsatisfactory, and that it was to be hoped that some official from British Intelligence Services MI5 would come forward with the relevant documents. I understand that someone from Whitehall is on his way here. In the meantime, Mr. Egerton can proceed with his testimony. Miss Gibson?
Thank you, my lord. Now, Mr. Egerton, you've had a very difficult couple of years, haven't you?
Yes.
From a promising career as a regular officer in the British Army to this, to total ruin.
Yes.
Branded as an arms smuggler, a jailbird, a criminal. Dismissed the service, unemployed, probably unemployable. Homeless, penniless, and now without even your wife.
Yes.
Even your wife has left you.
Yes.
Almost without hope, almost friendless.
Almost.
Friendless because nobody throughout the course of 2 previous court actions, appeals, massive publicity, nobody has believed one word of your story. Is that why you did what you have done?
I'm afraid I don't quite follow you.
No? How much will the Sunday Star newspaper pay you for your sensational story?
My expenses, costs in this case.
And how much in your pocket?
It depends.
Upon what?
Upon how much of my story they finally use.
And in which circumstances will they use more of it?
If I'm cleared here, I suppose.
Yes, so you can expect more money, a lot more money, as a result of this case.
I might.
Is that why you caused it to be brought?
I didn't bring it.
You caused it. You made the statements which forced Colonel Morland to sue you. Is that why you made those statements? In the hope of causing him to sue you, of prolonging publicity, and of earning more money?
No, I didn't do it in the hope of earning more money.
No, but you've just
Let
said...
him answer, Miss Gibson.
You hope to be sued.
Yes, if I may...
You admit that you hope to force Colonel Morland to sue you.
May I answer, or will you keep on browbeating me?
Answer, please.
I'd no wish to embarrass the government. I kept silent. I kept silent through my trial and through 18 months in jail.
Did you? Your counsel in India, in addressing the jury, said, and I quote, "This young man, more sinned against than sinning, a tool of some British spy master, perhaps, etc."
Judson raised the issue, not me.
In the
I
hope...
couldn't control him. I refused to talk to the press, even when I came home to find myself being court-martialed. I talked only when there was no alternative.
In the hope that somebody would bring you to court to account for your
Yes,
stories.
in just that hope, and because every word I had said was stone-cold, literal, sober truth.
In fact, Mr. Egerton, there was no one likely to take the smallest interest in you, was there, except Colonel Morland. Is that why you invented this unsubstantiated fiction in the hope that he would sue you?
No, ma'am, that was true, too.
Was it? You wrote him a note covering yourself, presumably, hoping that it might cover you. But did you ever then again discuss it with him, tell him what you were up to?
Not in so many words, no.
Well, in any other words, even obliquely.
We were instructed not to discuss it.
Instructed by these non-existent MI5 people?
By MI5, yes.
Did you hear the Colonel's instructions?
No.
No? How do you know what his instructions were, then?
By his subsequent behaviour.
The only testimony you've offered upon that score is a vague, rather silly conversation in which you call yourself James Bond, and in reply, your words, "The Colonel froze you."
Yes.
Just that one vague remark open to so many interpretations, whilst your memory for other conversations seems to be remarkably exact, years after the event.
I've had a great deal of time to remember.
Yeah, you've had a great deal of time to invent, too.
None of it is...
Now, you claim that Major Weeks and the incredible disappearing Spicer went to see Colonel Morland.
Yes, they did.
And how could you know that?
Because they rang him from my home and made an appointment then and there. Because I watched the car drive away and I saw it parked outside his house half an hour later when I went out with my wife. And because of his subsequent behaviour, giving me time off when it wasn't due, signing the travel warrant and never mentioning the thing again.
Having written to Colonel Weeks, Colonel Morland never mentioned the subject again.
Proving he'd been ordered to keep quiet about it.
Proving more likely that he had time to put it completely out of his mind.
That's
Now,
rubbish.
let's take your points one by one, even if we were to accept your story of secret agent visitors, which I am not suggesting that we should. Then how do you know it was Colonel Morland they really phoned? How do you know that Spicer went with Major Weeks to see the Colonel? How do you know what was said? You do not, you cannot know, can you?
I know from his behavior subsequently.
But you don't, do you? You were an officer. If you went unasked for leave, no commanding officer would subject you to any petty grilling, will he? And similarly with this travel warrant. What did you do? Go to the chief clerk and say, I want a warrant for Dubrovnik, Sergeant?
He knew I had no other business than our MI5 business in Dubrovnik.
Mr. Egerton, please consider, put if you can all personal difficulties out of your mind. Let us assume that your story is true. You were asked by MI5 to do a job for them. You did it. Now tell me truthfully, in the light of all the circumstances, do you concede it is possible that Colonel Morland did not know, really and truly did not know?
I am certain he knew.
But it is possible that he did not. It is not impossible, is it?
Well, it's not impossible. No,
Good.
nothing's
Now,
impossible.
you say that your cover with these terrorists was to pose as an agent for them to purchase arms.
Yes, I
And
just...
presumably, as an arms dealer, to be consistent and credible, you would be paid, what, say, a proportion of the cost?
Well, I might, but I never had a penny, of
No?
course.
What sort of sum was it?
Well,
Hundreds? Thousands?
50,000.
50,000. You stood to make £50,000. Now, that is a great deal of money, is it not?
Yes, indeed it is.
It
But the
provides
money is not
a
the
very
point.
credible motive for why you got involved, didn't it? The only thing we do know is that you were arrested on board a ship which was smuggling illegal arms.
You know, I've had a great deal of this over the last 2 years. You can make truth sound like lies, and it's your job. I had not one penny.
Isn't the truth, Mr. Egerton, that you took a chance to make a lot of money and that you came unstuck?
No.
You ask us to believe that all the men involved, fine, honourable men, members of Her Majesty's government, the government of India, anybody and everybody entered into a sinister conspiracy against you.
I ask you to believe that for what must have seemed like good reasons then, I was made the scapegoat to cover up an official mess.
Mr. Egerton, there remains just one portion of your story which is not explained by seeing you as an opportunist. It is the matter of the £876 you claim MI5 gave you as expenses.
Yes?
Now, at the time, Mr. Egerton, you were working as an arms dealer with terrorists with all the money in the world. I quote you.
Yes, but
I suggest, Mr. Egerton, that all that cash simply came from them.
It didn't. It
I
came
have
from...
no more questions, Mr. Egerton.
Mr. Egerton, where did this money come from?
It came from MI5.
And is it true that you have libelled Colonel Morland untruthfully simply to make money?
No. Colonel Morland knew I was working for MI5, and he didn't tell the truth at my court-martial.
And are you telling us the truth here now?
I took an oath. Nothing I have said here, not a single word, has been less than God's truth.
Thank you, Mr. Egerton. My lord?
Go. Mr. Egerton, you may leave the witness box.
May it please your lordship, I represent the government in this matter of the intelligence service witness. My lord, matters of state security are concerned, and I am here for that reason. I have an application which I ask you to deal with in camera.
I have an instinctive dislike of secrecy. However, in this instance, there does seem to be some justification for it. Everybody, except the jury, the principals in this case, and their lawyers, must now leave the court. Right, Mr. Marney, your application.
I'm obliged, your lordship. My application is made to protect the interests of state. Inasmuch as this witness is a senior official of Her Majesty's Secret Service Department, MI5, I ask that all these matters should be heard in camera.
No.
My lord, my client feels that if justice is to be done, Where there has been and will be so much publicity, it is essential to his case that no evidence should be heard in secret.
No, I am not concerned with acting as a press agent. The only issue before this court is whether or not a libel has the defence of justification. Now, should the witness from MI5 produce material documents which would assist your client, it would be possible to apply to the Home Secretary for an order to the Court of Appeal to reconsider the findings of the court-martial.
Thank you, my lord. May I also apply, on behalf of the government, that the witness to be called be given permission to write down his name and official position to prevent any question of identification?
No. The court has been cleared, and that is quite sufficient. Call the witness.
What is your religion?
Church of England.
Take the Bible in your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
What is your full name?
Sir William Arthur Daubney Ironmonger.
Your address?
Burke's Club, Pall Mall, London Southwest 1.
And your occupation, Sir William?
My lord, am I bound to answer that in open court?
Yes, you are bound to answer all proper questions that are put to you. This is not an open court. We are in camera. What is your occupation?
I'm acting head of MI5.
How long have you been a senior official with MI5?
More than 8 years.
And do you know ex-Captain Egerton?
My lord, this witness was subpoenaed to produce documents, not to give oral evidence.
Well, now that he's in the witness box, he can be asked about anything. Have you brought records relating to Thompson, Spicer, and Egerton?
No, my lord, they do not exist.
None at all.
No, my lord.
Then we shall indeed need your oral evidence. Mr. Logan.
Do you admit to knowing Egerton?
By name only. I've never met him.
Have you, or has anybody responsible to you, ever had dealings of any sort with Egerton?
No.
You do clearly understand, Sir William, that no other commitment to secrecy overrides the oath that you've taken here and your duty to tell the truth to this court.
Yes, my lord.
What contact has MI5 had with Egerton?
None.
What do you mean to... Do you mean to say that no one has ever approached you to ask you what were your connections with Egerton?
That, my lord, yes, on several occasions.
Has Egerton himself ever approached you for confirmation of some connection?
He approached the department first, I believe, after his return from India, and several times prior to his court-martial. He had to. He told his story, and he had to follow it up. It's a clever story, of course, almost impossible to disprove.
What knowledge have you of an MI5 agent using the name of Thompson who visited Egerton in jail while he was awaiting trial in India?
No one of that name works for the department nor visited him. To my knowledge, no one in any official capacity visited Egerton.
And would you know if a visit had been made? Could it not have been made by another department or by one of your subordinates without your knowledge?
No official visited Egerton. Of that I'm certain.
But it is a fact that a man using the name of Thompson did visit Egerton. Can you suggest any explanation for this?
No, my lord.
Can you shed any light at all upon this visit?
No, my lord.
Has your department ever employed a man by the name of Spicer, or any man who visited Egerton in the company of Major Weeks?
Egerton was never in any way in contact with this department. There is no Spicer.
Does Major Weeks work for your department?
I'm not at liberty to...
You must answer.
Major Weeks is not MI5 establishment.
What is he then?
My lord...
Answer.
My lord, the difficulty here is that once any agent is publicly identified, well, his usefulness is ended. He becomes unemployable. Look, I understand Major Weeks is to be...
You have said Major Weeks is not MI5, and this is not a public place.
Major Weeks is employed within Army Field Security.
Then he is not a secret agent.
No, my lord.
Then why did you hesitate to answer?
Because he's known to us. We may work with him. He has channels into the department.
Now, a memorandum was written by Colonel Morland to Major Weeks reporting the activities in Brussels of a certain group of terrorists. What knowledge have you of that?
Time, Major Weeks did pass the information to us.
So that MI5 did have knowledge of these activities at the time claimed by Egerton.
Knowledge, yes, my lord, but...
Well, what action did you take?
None. There was no action taken.
Sir William, are you asking us to accept that your department knew that a group of men were trying illegally to buy arms and that you took no action at all?
My lord, I'm not free to discuss matters of policy.
Indeed you are. And let me remind you again, Sir William, that you are bound to answer any questions that I think fit.
My lord, Britain's sphere of influence, my department's activities are not, cannot be worldwide.
But they certainly include Brussels, do they not? And I should be very surprised if they didn't encompass the Mediterranean.
Perhaps, my lord, but the arms were destined for rather further afield.
But you could not know that, could you, till after the event?
My lord.
Oh, really?
With your indulgence, would it be out of order to suggest that these sensitive matters might properly be discussed in chambers?
Yes, it would be out of order. I think it is essential that the jury should hear these answers, and they shall. Now, you will either answer me fully and frankly, Sir William, or I shall take measures to ensure that you do.
There were certain indications.
What indications?
The fact that the principals were Arab.
How did you know that without making investigations?
They were Arab. What the sources of that intelligence were, after all this time, I'm not sure I recall.
But then you could perhaps have brought along your departmental records to jog your memory.
My lord, there would be no records by the very nature of our work.
Then you are refusing to answer me.
Oh, no, my lord, no. I just don't remember. Is it important? They were Arabs.
If I have reason to believe, Sir William, that you are not answering me truthfully, I may send these papers to the Director of Public Prosecutions with a view to your prosecution for perjury. Do you understand that?
My lord,
Do you understand that?
Yes, my lord, but I cannot be held responsible for my memory. I have said that I don't remember, and I don't.
But you do remember that no one visited Egerton. You do remember that there was no Thompson and Spicer, and you do remember that when illegal activities were reported to you, you took no action at all.
Yes, but those things are easier to remember. And I have been asked before. The business was in the papers. There were questions in Parliament.
Sir William, did you have any part in recommending that the British government should pay the costs of Egerton's trial in India?
No, but it isn't that extraordinary. He was a British officer.
Were you consulted about the army decision to proceed with a court-martial when Captain Egerton returned to the United Kingdom?
I was consulted, yes, but again, it wasn't my decision.
Now, if you had an agent working for you, Sir William, an agent who was caught in a compromising situation, what would you do to help him?
What sort of compromising situation?
Where your agent was perhaps involved in an illegal action abroad.
I can only answer that if an agent exceeded his orders to the point of behaving illegally abroad, he would have to pay the penalty like anybody else.
You would disown him?
If he behaved illegally, of course.
As you disowned Egerton?
No, sir.
Would you disown an agent if he'd acted illegally, even on your orders?
My lord.
My lord, you're putting me in an impossible position. I can only repeat that Egerton was never in any way our agent.
Now, Mrs. Egerton, can you remember as far back as the night of the 19th of December, 1971?
Yes.
Good. Now, on that night, did your husband receive any visitors?
Yes, he did. 2 men. He took them into his study.
Do you know who they were? Did you see or hear them?
Voices, men's voices, that's all. We were going out. I was getting ready. John told me afterwards one had been Major Weeks. I got the impression the other man was a bit hush-hush.
Can you remember what your husband said?
Yes. We were on our way to a reception and we passed Colonel Morland's house. Major Weeks' car was outside. John said that... Is there any point to this?
What do you mean?
Well, I can only tell you what John said. I mean, hearsay. It's not admissible, is it? They wouldn't let me tell them at the court-martial.
It is admissible here, Mrs. Egerton, because this is a civil case and because there are certain procedures which we have complied with which permit it.
Well, that's something anyway. Yes, when we saw the car, I said, "Old Weeks in there polishing off another bottle of the Colonel's booze." John laughed and said, "God, I shouldn't think he'd want any more. He sank enough of ours already tonight." They wouldn't let me say that at the court-martial, but it does show Weeks did visit John and Colonel Morland that night.
Now, at the end of February 72, did you fly out to India?
Yes, to see John in jail.
And who paid the expenses for that trip?
The army paid, which they wouldn't have done if he really was guilty.
Mr. Logan, hearsay is one thing, but you really must not allow your witness to interpolate her own opinions like this.
No, my lord, I'm obliged. Now, in January and February 72, Mrs. Egerton, was your husband away a great deal?
He was, yes, all over Europe.
And what did you think he was doing?
Well, John was discreet about his work, but I knew damned well it wasn't official army business. I mean, discreet or not, you know enough about the job of the man you're married to. They were frantically busy in Brussels then, and there was nothing official for him to have been doing trotting about Europe.
Well, if you knew this much, then Colonel Morland must have been doubly certain that he was not on army business.
Yes, of course he knew. At a party he gave in January for staff, I said something like, "John's being very mysterious lately, and you must be missing him, all this swanning about." Colonel Morland replied, "It'll soon be over, Linda. Just a little job he's doing for Major Weeks."
The Colonel told you that he knew your husband was working on a job for Major Weeks?
Yes, that's what he said.
Your ex-husband, surely, Mrs. Egerton?
Yes, we're divorced.
Yes, indeed. Why did you divorce him?
That's an impertinent question.
Would you answer it, please?
All right. When John was arrested, it was a bolt from the blue. I went out to India and discovered what he'd been doing. Then I heard how much money he stood to make. I thought, when he was found guilty and jailed, I thought he was guilty. Came home and started the divorce. But then I started remembering.
He was guilty, yes. Now,
may I finish?
The army, even if he was guilty, would you not expect the army
Subsequently,
I
started remembering.
To be with your husband?
I started remembering and putting bits together, and slowly I came to realize the truth. He really had been working for MI5, as he said at the court-martial.
That is not what I asked you, Mrs. Egerton.
Yes, you did.
What are your feelings now towards your ex-husband? If I may be impertinent, do you slightly regret having divorced him, for example?
It's downright offensive, and I don't know how to answer.
Do we have to weigh your evidence against the possibility that you and your ex-husband might get back together again?
Oh, no. I'm engaged to marry someone else.
But you still have many warm feelings for him, do you not? You owe him loyalty and support, compassion even.
Yes, I certainly owe him
and
that.
Even the army can be compassionate, can't it? Paying your expenses to be with your husband, paying his defense costs, standing by him, standing by an officer until he was proved guilty.
Wrongly found guilty.
But he was found guilty, wasn't he? And guilty again at his court-martial, and his sentence appealed and his sentence confirmed. You must feel deeply sorry for a man you once loved, your husband.
Yes.
Sorry enough to want to do anything you can to help him now?
Yes.
Sorry enough to come here and give evidence for him?
Yes.
Sorry enough to shade that evidence just a little, to invent just a conversation or two for the very best of motives?
No.
No?
No.
Thank you, Mrs. Egerton.
Well, you may step down.
Members of the jury, I shall be calling Colonel Morland, whose evidence will show...
Yes, Miss Gibson, but in view of the hour, I think perhaps we must adjourn and start Colonel Morland's testimony tomorrow morning.
As your lordship pleases.
All stand.
Join us tomorrow for the final day of Morland versus Egerton and Star newspapers in the Crown Court. After an Indian jail sentence and a British court-martial when he was caught gun-running, Army Captain Egerton tells the press that he was working for MI5. MI5 denies this, but Egerton goes on to claim that his then CO, Colonel Morland, knew and lied at his court-martial to save official red faces. Now retired, the Colonel sues Egerton and the Sunday Star newspaper for libel.
Now, Colonel Morland, did you know the defendant was working for MI5 and suppressed that knowledge at his court-martial?
No.
Had you any reason ever to think that Mr. Egerton might have been working with MI5?
No, because he wasn't.
Now, what was the first you knew of men who were trying to buy arms illegally?
When Egerton came to me with his report, I was doubtful then and obliged to pass it on, so I wrote specifically my name to a friend of mine in Army Intelligence, to Major Weeks.
And what happened as a result of your report?
Absolutely nothing.
Did you never think to ask Major Weeks why no action was taken?
Yes, I thought if anything was going on, he'd have tipped me the wink not to ask any questions. As it was, he said they weren't particularly interested, and if it were true, it was outside Britain's jurisdiction.
Now, on the night of the 19th of December 1971, did you receive a phone call from Major Weeks?
Was that the date they were supposed to have brought this chap Spicer to see me?
Yes.
No, no phone call, no Spicer.
Did you ever meet a man called Spicer or anyone else from MI5?
No.
But Major Weeks did come to see you that night.
Oh, yes, he did that often, for a drink and a chat. Socially, of course. But that's why he's carved outside my house.
He came alone or in company?
Alone, and there was no mention of any visit to Egerton since there'd been none.
What was the first suggestion you heard that Egerton might have been involved with MI5?
Press reports of Judson's defence in India, which I didn't believe. Then Egerton's extraordinary story at the court-martial.
Did Egerton at any time during your working relationship with him make any reference to MI5?
No, of course not.
Did you ever have conversation with Egerton in which he referred to himself as James Bond?
No, I don't remember any such remark.
Did you ever say to Mrs. Egerton, it's just a little job he's doing for Major Weeks?
I'm afraid you're suggesting to Mrs. Egerton that her desire to help her ex-husband has outweighed her, shall we say, her memory of the truth. It's true. I made no such comment.
Now, you also went out to India to see Egerton following his arrest in India, didn't you, Colonel? Now, who paid your expenses?
Well, the army, as one would expect.
Were you surprised to find that the army also paid the cost of Egerton's defence in India?
It was my recommendation. I should have been surprised if they hadn't.
When you saw Egerton at this time in jail in India, did he then hint of any MI5 involvement?
No.
Now, if MI5 or somebody had come to you and asked for Egerton's services for such a scheme, would you have agreed?
Under no circumstances. It's a dirty business, spying. There are professionals. I'd have told Captain Egerton to keep off.
Nevertheless, at this time, Egerton did begin to travel a lot, to be away from his job.
Yes, yes, more and more, culminating with a request for a month's leave he wasn't due.
What did you think he was doing?
Well, if I thought anything at all, I thought he was having perhaps domestic problems, troubles with his wife. He was a very brilliant officer. One can't run a unit with men like that if one treats them as schoolboys. If he wanted leave, I gave it him.
And the travel warrant you signed, the warrant to Dubrovnik, did you query that?
No, for the same reasons. As a matter of fact, it didn't dawn on me till afterwards. I signed, 50 or 60 a week. You trust your officers.
As his superior in day-to-day contact with him, had you any reason to think it was possible that he was working for MI5?
You know, Egerton was a damn fine soldier with a brilliant future before him. Nonsense like that, you'd be much too sensible. The best I can do is to return the compliment he paid me. That he should have been involved with MI5, for whatever reason, is most unlikely, but I suppose not altogether impossible.
That's very generous of you, Colonel, but your personal conviction.
Of course he wasn't.
Now, did anyone ever ask you to enter into a conspiracy to suppress any of the facts of this matter?
No.
Did anyone ever ask you to do anything except tell the truth?
No.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Except, Colonel, that many people must have suggested that it wasn't a good idea, again, to wash the army's dirty linen in public.
Well, that's true.
And yet, against much advice, pressure even, you went ahead with it. Why?
For the same reason the army was forced to go ahead with the court-martial once there was conviction against him. Egerton libelled me, and to take no action could be read as complicity.
There was pressure put upon you to drop this case.
Yes, well, people said, don't rock the boat, don't kick a man when he's down. The best thing is to keep silent.
People?
Not members of MI5, if that's what you mean.
Your friend from military intelligence, Major Weeks, what did he say?
I don't think he said anything very much. He sympathised, of course, and understood my position.
When you'd explained it?
Yes, vaguely, yes.
And after he'd tried to dissuade you?
Yes.
Now, it's all a bit of a club, isn't it, the Army?
Well, it's a cliché sometimes used, yes.
A cliché becomes a cliché because it's true, Colonel. In brother officers, that sort of thing. If one wants something done, there's no need to get unpleasant about it. Just a hint to someone who knows someone else who has a quiet word.
I don't know what point you're trying to make, but yes, it can happen, yes.
Why, that if MI5 wanted you to drop this case, there was no need for them to approach you directly. Now, you said, I think, Colonel, spying is a dirty business.
Well, isn't it?
Is it why?
Well, I think it is. Do you want me to enlarge further?
Yes, please.
I mean professional spying, not simple gathering of intelligence. It's a trick of the Reds, keep everything secret. And of course, totalitarianism must win that game. It's no good our trying to combat it at all. We're forced to copy their dirty methods, to spy when they spy, lie when they lie, and even kill when they kill. Play by those rules, and sooner or later you come to look more and more like your enemy. In the end, you're indistinguishable. And then, what have you been fighting for? Freedom to have a Watergate scandal?
But you don't really believe that we could do without spies?
Our only advantage over totalitarian regimes is honesty, openness, and flexibility. To send in spies would be quite hopeless. Personally, I like to take the lot and stick them up against a wall.
And shoot them, you mean?
Well, there's no specific work one can give them. They're liars, cheats, burglars, murderers even, some of them. Hardly useful citizens.
Extreme views.
For which I don't apologize.
Are your views on the subject of spies and spying widely known in the Army?
Where, I suppose. I'm retired now.
So well known, would you think that even if it was necessary, MI5 would hesitate to approach you directly?
Where are these questions intended to lead us, Mr. Logan?
My lord, I'm simply trying to establish the Colonel's attitude to spies, to MI5.
Yes, but to what purpose?
If your lordship insists, there are several cases, several stages to my case. We have heard evidence strongly suggesting that MI5 did make use of Captain Egerton.
That is for the jury to decide, and not you in the middle of your cross-examination.
Indeed, my lord. But then there are several possibilities. The plaintiff's contention that he did not know. The defendant's contention that Colonel Morland did know. And then there is another, more subtle possibility, perhaps.
What?
That Colonel Morland was told indirectly. That he was told, but not by MI5, and not using the word spies or spying, so that his prejudices would not be aroused. He knew, but not everything.
That is a line of argument with which I am not happy, Mr. Logan. Of course, I do not know what instructions you received, but the only issue before this court is one of libel, and I will not have my court used as a forum for any other issue.
Yes, my lord.
If Colonel Morland did not know, then there is no defence against the libel, and you do your client no service by following this line of examination.
I'm obliged to your lordship. However, if I could establish that...
I do not intend to debate the matter with you. Now go on with your cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. Now, Colonel Morland, we have established that some pressure was put upon you to drop this case, and that your friend Weeks was a party to it.
I don't think you've established anything. I merely said that Major Weeks mentioned it casually without any pressure.
But as a friend, he suggested that you drop it.
Yes.
But your friend, isn't he a spy?
Oh, he's Army intelligence.
But he works with MI5 closely. Isn't that a fine distinction?
Not all. I can see the difference.
That if you had discovered that Major Weeks was a spy of the sort that you dislike, what would your reaction be?
Well, I'd drop him. I couldn't have him as a friend.
You'd be deeply disappointed in him.
Yes.
As you were deeply disappointed in Captain Egerton when you first heard his court-martial defence.
Yes, I suppose so.
So deeply that when he came to giving evidence at his court-martial, you deliberately blocked from your mind all knowledge, all suspicions you might have had, and simply denied flatly all help to him?
If you're suggesting that I lied at his court-martial, no, I did not.
But you did put it from your mind, all thought that he might have truly been working for MI5, didn't you?
No.
I think you did. Now, you've said in your evidence in chief that it was not absolutely impossible that Egerton was working for MI5. Equally, it is not absolutely impossible that you knew it.
Yes, I get rather muddled with double negatives, but no, I didn't know it.
Are you a stupid man?
No.
You must be an ostrich, then.
Egerton's words. Well, perhaps he's right. There's some things I'd rather not know.
You deliberately blocked them from your mind?
I didn't.
But how would you know if you'd blocked it from your mind.
Look, this is damn silly.
Now, if your friend Weeks isn't a spy, why did you report to him specifically by name?
But I thought he'd know what to do.
You knew he had channels into MI5?
Well, quite honestly, yes.
So that you did know there would be an MI5 involvement?
Look, I tried to block it from my mind. I hadn't got much faith in it anyway.
Another thing you blocked from your mind, you knew that MI5 would have to be told.
Yes?
And although you put it out of your mind, you also knew that Egerton would have to be involved with them, didn't you?
Yes,
No.
I suppose so.
Neither a fool, Colonel, nor an ostrich. You must have known. You said you thought Egerton would have too much sense to get himself involved in an affair like this. But not too much sense to get himself involved with gun running for money?
Well, it's out of character, I admit.
Why? Because of the motives? His motives would be shabby where money was involved.
But yes.
And what about his motives for becoming involved under MI5 orders? They might be better, mightn't they? The only reason he'd undertake something like this would be out of pure patriotism, wouldn't it?
It's rather misguided patriotism. Anyway, I'm damn sure from everything that's been said, he was not working for MI5.
Well, having helped to have him dismiss the service, to break him, you'd now have to cling to that, wouldn't you? To put any other idea out of your mind along with the rest.
Look, do chaps make black white.
Now, one last thing, Colonel.
Egerton was not working with MI5.
One last thing you can help me with, Colonel, if you would. If a group of terrorists were trying to buy arms illegally, that would be a very serious matter, wouldn't it?
Yes, which it was.
As it was indeed. And yet you expect us to believe that you and your friends took no action at all?
Well, no one believed it.
Well, how can that be? It was true.
Yes, but...
And the least investigation would have shown it to be true.
Yes?
It's inconceivable that no investigation at all was made, isn't it? Thank you, Colonel.
I have no re-examination, my lord. Now, cast your mind back, Major Weeks, to December 1971. At that time, did your friend Colonel Morland make a report to you?
Yes, ma'am. Memo, 16th December.
As a result of that report, did you go to see Egerton?
No. I knew Egerton, of course, but I didn't go to see him about this thing.
What action did you take as a result of that report?
Wasn't my province. I passed it on.
Where to and with what recommendations?
Through channels to MI5. And I said what I then believed to be true, that Egerton was sound enough, but that Judson was an attention seeker, a glory boy, not to be taken too seriously. He used to write things for the papers, too.
So that you suspected he might be out for a story?
Exactly so.
What response?
But if anyone's to blame for all this, you know, it's me.
Oh, how's that?
I, Judson, tagged as a lightweight, to be taken with a pinch of salt, a sort of rumor that floats around Brussels 6 times a week. I reflected that in my recommendations, and I suppose it's why nobody did anything about it.
What response did you have from MI5?
Phone call, that's all.
Saying what?
Curt little phone call.
Saying?
As good as telling me not to waste their time.
They didn't believe the arms story?
No. My fault. And even if it was true, you know, not our business. Not Britain's business. I blame myself. Bad intelligence work.
Now, what was the name of the MI5 official who telephoned you?
Don't know.
Do you know any MI5 agent who uses the name Spicer?
Don't know. No.
Did you visit Captain Egerton during the evening of the 19th of December, 1971?
No.
Did you ever go to see him in company with any MI5 agent?
No, ma'am.
Or to see Colonel Morland?
No. On the night you're talking about, I did go and see Harry Morland, but on my own, for a drink and a natter. Talk.
Did you mention at all the Egerton memorandum?
Not then. Later. Later he said, "What happened about that arms thing?" And I said nothing. Told me to forget it. Something like that. Days later.
Is there anything at all you can tell us to shed any more light on these matters?
Afraid not. Not really. I can only tell you no, and I don't know. Mr. Egerton didn't get introduced to MI5 through me, anyway.
Thank you, Major Weeks.
You blame yourself.
What?
You blame yourself. Bad intelligence work, you said. For all that happened?
Yes.
And for what has happened since to Captain Egerton?
Yes.
Why?
Well.
Yes?
Well, it wouldn't have happened
What wouldn't have happened?
He wouldn't have got involved.
With MI5?
With those terrorists.
Why?
Well, if I'd made another recommendation.
What would have happened?
He'd have had agents breathing down his neck.
You mean he'd have been watched by MI5?
Right.
Wasn't he?
I said not.
Did you expect us to believe that a report of a very serious nature made by a responsible and a respected senior officer was just ignored, simply swept under the carpet with an, "Oh, don't bother us, don't waste our time"?
Because of my recommendation.
And nobody ever again thought to check up on any part of it when the most casual inquiry would have shown it to be true?
There was no action.
And nobody thought just to ask Egerton later if he was doing anything about it?
No.
He did get involved, didn't he?
Yes.
Yes, I was beginning to wonder. Now, is it likely that he'd involve himself for money and then risk alerting you and MI5 by reporting it?
He did. I recommended no action.
That was bad intelligence, wasn't it?
Yes.
Did Morland never mention to you that since the report, Egerton had taken to travelling around Europe, to spending a lot of time and money on various unexplained trips?
No.
That was bad intelligence too, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you're still a major, are you?
Yes.
I mean, according to you, you've made so many mistakes in your handling of this affair by your telling of it, and yet no one has ever reprimanded you for it or demoted you or even just said, "Tut, tut."
No.
It's very understanding of the army, isn't it?
The army?
Yes.
Well.
Looks after its own.
Sir?
Well, you're a soldier.
Yes.
A good soldier?
I try.
A good soldier follows orders, doesn't he?
Yes.
Any orders?
Legitimate orders.
From a superior officer?
Yes.
And if a superior officer asked you to come here and tell us less than the truth, would you obey?
No.
Major Weeks, you say you blame yourself for all this?
Yes. Well...
I mean, men in jail, men killed, nearly an international incident, the career of a promising young officer ruined, all because of you?
That's
not true. You can redress some of that wrong here.
Yes.
Yes?
I can't add anything to what I've already said.
You mean you can't rock the boat, you can't go against orders?
I mean I can't add anything to what I've already said.
So you say. Is Colonel Morland a good friend of yours?
He is.
How does he feel about your connection with MI5?
Not happy about that, I suppose.
You know how he feels about spies?
Yes.
So that if you had to tell him something about your job, some sensitive area, how would you do it?
I don't follow.
Well, sometimes you had to discuss security with him.
Yes.
Then you did it obliquely, did you?
Tactfully. He's got a bit of a bee.
So that if we imagine, for the sake of argument, that you had to tell him Egerton was going to be a bit busy on some undercover job.
No.
What do you mean, no?
I didn't.
Yes, but if Egerton had been busy on something like that, well, then you'd be forced to tell the Colonel something, wouldn't you?
I repeat that I...
For the sake of argument.
If it had been true, yes, I'd have had to mention it.
And obliquely, in terms of hints, without saying spies or MI5.
I didn't.
And his reaction might be to pretend he didn't understand you.
Look.
Yes?
You're trying to trap me into something.
No, Major Weeks. I'm simply trying to get you to tell the truth.
I've told you.
One last thing, Major. From your knowledge and experience of intelligence work, if an agent was caught abroad, an amateur or even a professional, caught and exposed, what would your masters do about it? Well, what?
I don't know what you're after.
Well, wouldn't they disown him? Wouldn't they say they'd never heard of him?
Probably.
Exactly as happened to Egerton.
But...
There is but one real issue before you, members of the jury. If Egerton was involved with MI5, did Colonel Morland know or not? I submit that Egerton was not with MI5. His story, unsubstantiated, full of holes, the word of a twice-convicted man, is all we have to weigh against the testimony of many better men. Well, either way, this is not the major issue. The libel, the admitted libel, is in writing that Colonel Morland knew and lied at Egerton's court-martial. But no one has been able to shake the certainty of a fine and honourable officer that he did not know. Nothing better has been suggested than he was told sort of, indirectly, with nods and winks, and then somehow miraculously managed to forget again. Now, can you believe this of a man who has had a long and distinguished career in Her Majesty's forces? He did not know. In this case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the burden of proof rests upon the defendants. I submit that so far, having proved their case, they have proved nothing, and that you must therefore find for the plaintiff.
And so, members of the jury, in spite of efforts in high places to pervert the course of justice, I think by now you must feel satisfied that we have established sufficient proof that Colonel Morland knew very well that Captain Egerton was acting under MI5 orders. That at the court-martial he withheld that information either because he himself was also under orders to do so, or because he is the sort of man who has trained himself to block from his conscious mind all thoughts that may be unpalatable to him. And so he helped to wreck the life and promising career of a brother officer. And I ask you with your verdict to dismiss the Colonel's claim.
Now, in reaching your verdict, members of the jury, I must ask you to put from your mind all matters that are not relevant to this case of libel. For instance, you may feel sorry for Mr. Egerton because of all that he's been through. That is not relevant. If the authorities you feel have been less than truthful, of course a great wrong has been done, but nor is that relevant here. The only issue before you here is whether or not an admitted libel has the defense that it is true. Now, in law, that is a complete answer to the charge of libel. Now, I'd remind you of one of the statements complained of, and that was Colonel Morland knew all about it and lied at my court-martial. Now, remember that the burden of proof rests upon the defendants. If they satisfy you that on the balance of probabilities Colonel Morland did tell lies, then of course you must find for the defendants. But on the other hand, if you are not so satisfied, then you will have to find for the plaintiff Colonel Morland. Now, members of the jury, will you kindly retire to consider your verdict?
All stand. Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Just answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict on which you're all agreed?
Yes.
In this case of Morland versus Egerton and the Sunday Star newspaper, do you find for the plaintiff or for the defendants?
For the defendant.